We were reflecting on Psalm 2 as the author revealed the Lord's puzzlement over the rebellion of world rulers, authorities, and people in the world toward him through resistance to his law that produces freedom. Now, pointing out that he had enthroned a king above every king, his one and only Son, he revealed that this king has power and provision for any and every need. Now, as the psalm concludes, notice the tension that exists in verses 10 through 12. It says, "Now, therefore, O kings, be wise, be warned, O rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way, for his wrath is quickly kindled. Blessed are all who take refuge in him." Do you see or hear the tension in those words? Notice, he says, rejoice with trembling and serve the Lord with fear while kissing the Son. Obviously, there are some things going on here that are paradoxical or that don't seem to go together and call us to take a closer look. So let's notice, first of all, rejoicing certainly does not seem compatible with trembling until we recognize that trembling is often used to communicate humility. Isaiah the prophet used it this way at the end of his prophetic book. He wrote, "These are the ones I look on with favor, those who are humble and contrite in spirit and who tremble at my word." You see the association? Humility is parallel with contrition or brokenheartedness and trembling. They're all different ways of saying the same thing. It's a common form of Hebrew poetry. So if we look at Psalm 2, it seems to be calling everyone in the world to humble themselves and find rejoicing in the process or joy in the process before the Lord. But what about this idea of kissing the Son? Well, the tension seems to exist between the phrase serving the Lord with fear and kissing the Son until we recognize that the concept of kissing, it has to do with bowing to kiss the ground or the feet of a ruler. It's the concept of submission that emerges. You see, serving the Lord in reverence and submission to him and his authority are not contradictory ideas, but complementary by nature. Although language of this sort might at first appear to be somewhat heavy-handed, it's anything but that. It's obvious, at least by the last phrase of this psalm, the phrase, "Blessed are those who take refuge in him." Now, observing these commands will take us from rebellion and resistance toward Jesus to refuge and blessing in him. And I would say that it's quite a proposition, especially in these days that we live. So the question is, where do we begin? Well, we begin with the way that we think. You see, it appears that these first two Psalms were meant to be read together, and probably were in the days of old, in the life of Israel and their worship. Blessing starts by changing the way we think, meditating on God's Word, learning to think and see the life the way God does. And that leads to changes in conduct, in life that leads us from rebellion and rage toward God and his law, that is really our nature and in our society, to humility and submission consistent with the very nature and conduct of Jesus the Son. You see, it's a tall order, especially as it addresses our purpose in the world today, and we'll talk more about that later this week. But until then, I'd like you to join me in asking ourselves, are we really happy? If not, today's a great time to meditate on Psalm 1 and 2 and ask the Lord for help. If you're happy, rejoice and kiss the Son. God bless you this week as we do exactly that.